because as a teenager, I really thought I had a great life. I was an only child. I was homeschooled by wonderful parents, and we moved around the country a lot because it wasn't legal to homeschool back in those days, and so we're kind of running from the law a lot of times. And I was into horse training. I was becoming an accomplished equestrian in dressage, in the field of dressage, and so I thought, man, you know, I don't need God. I've got a pretty good life as it is. And my philosophy was this: I don't hear God, I don't see God, I can't smell God, so I don't think God exists. My father was a wonderful man, but he had become very bitter toward the church because of different things he'd seen, and he taught me that the church just wants your money, and the Bible is written by man. And those two, that was his philosophy, and so that based on that, and I really respected my dad, and so I, okay, yep, that's it. You know, I don't need anything to do with God. So, well, my mom started to go to church, and she started to drag me with her, and I saw the difference in those believers in that church, and I started to say, God, I don't believe in you, but if you really exist, you're going to have to show yourself to me somehow. I'd like to believe in you, but I don't believe in you. And so, you know, when your heart really wants to know God, I believe He will answer the cry of your heart. March 28, 1986, God answered that cry of my heart. I woke up early morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I could just see shadows in the room. And in my room, there was my bed, and then just a little walkway to a guest bed where my friends would stay some nights. Well, I didn't have any friends over. My parents are asleep downstairs. I woke up, and all of a sudden, an audible voice said to me, there's someone in the guest bed. Instantly, I look at the guest bed, and sure enough, there was a person lying in the bed asleep.
Wow.
And I'm terrified. I watch scary movies, and I've got all these images of monsters, and my worst nightmare is coming true. I'm like, what is going on? How did this person get in my house? I couldn't stay in my bed. I crawled out over the end of my bed and inched my way across the floor, hoping that the floorboard wouldn't squeak. This is how I know I was not sleeping, okay? I was not dreaming.
Yeah, it was
And
alive.
I stood there with my hand on the light switch, thinking, should I turn on the light and then what'll happen? I couldn't bring myself to do that. For some strange reason, I got back in my bed, and I cowered there under the blankets, waiting and watching. And it wasn't very long, and the person in the guest bed sat up on the side of the bed.
Oh my gosh.
It was Jesus. Now, when I saw him, I instantly knew it was Jesus, and all my fear was gone. But I didn't see him glorified. You know, he's resurrected. He is seated in glory with the Father. If we saw him in reality, he would be in white robes and glorious light. I saw him as he probably would have looked on the cross. I saw him bloody, where they had put the crown of thorns on his head. I saw his clothes in rags, where they had beaten his face. I saw the nail holes in his hands. And in that moment, just this overwhelming revelation just cascaded over me. God is real. Jesus is real. He really did die on that cross. He really did. What the Bible says is true. And finally, it was just overwhelming revelation. What I see he suffered for me. He loved me that much. He loves every one of us, every person. He loves that much that he died on that cross. He suffered that torture for us. And I couldn't believe, I just fell on my face weeping and repenting of my sin, because I knew I am a sinner and I need his salvation. And then it was just a narrow, but between this guest bed and my bed was very narrow, and he leaned over and he touched my shoulder. He laid his hand on my shoulder, and he looked into my eyes and he said, my child, don't cry. And I looked into his eyes, and I will never forget the compassion. Because in my natural being, I thought, well, I've caused him all this suffering. Surely he's angry with me. Surely he... No. Just forgiveness. Just love. And a love like you've never imagined, experienced from any human being.
Wow.
The love of God. And I just was overwhelmed with the reality and fell on my face again weeping. And when I woke up, I cried myself to sleep. And I woke up and it was daylight. And the room appeared as if nothing had happened, but I was changed. From that moment on, I knew that Jesus lives and that I belong to him.
Wow. And I know that you were a very academically oriented person, and yet all it took was one revelation,
Yes.
one encounter, and it changed your entire life.
Yes.
I want to address just a couple things right now. First of all, there's someone watching this clip, and you have a loved one that claims to be an atheist, and your heart is just broken for them. And it looks impossible because the more you share, the harder they get. But I want you to remember that it only takes just one revelation to come to Christ. Just one revelation. And if you're watching this program and you're saying, well, I don't believe any of that. That's just emotionalism. That's just, I don't know what it is, but it's not for me. I want to challenge you to do one thing. Would you do this one thing? Would you be curious about doing one thing? It's just saying, God, if you are real, just like Leanna did, God, if you're real, which I don't believe you are, but if you are real, would you prove that to me? Would you show me that you are real? And I guarantee you that he will answer that prayer. I guarantee you that he will answer that prayer. Why? Because he loves you with an everlasting love. He really, really does.